Hello and welcome back to Bookish. Today I want to continue my series on American World War I fiction by talking about Company K by William March. Before I talk about that book, I want to try to clarify something I think that got kind of confused in my last video. My point in doing these videos is not necessarily to run down any other World War I book, or certainly not to try to challenge All Quiet on the Western Front as the classic World War I fiction novel, but to kind of just try to draw attention to some underappreciated works of fiction by American authors from the time period about the war. So in the last video I talked about E. Cummings' book, The Enormous Room, and Hemingway's book, A Farewell to Arms. And in my discussion of those books, I made a point of pointing out that neither one of those men actually served in a combat position, and this I think led to the idea that I didn't think their books were good or were worthy of being considered necessarily World War I fiction because of that. And that's really not what I meant, even though I think I'm willing to accept that it's my fault that if that's the point that came across. My point was that those books used World War I as a setting, as a backdrop for other stories that they wanted to tell, and they didn't really take the war itself as a subject. Well, today's book, Company K by William March, is the opposite. The subject of the book I want to talk about today is the war itself and war itself. And in that sense, it is a much more realistic look at the experience of American combat soldiers during World War I. And it shouldn't surprise us, if you know anything about William March, it wouldn't surprise you that it is. William March was himself a veteran of World War I and a combat soldier as a member of the 5th Marine Regiment. This was William March's first book. It was published in 1933. And he went on to have a fairly long writing career. And he lived in New York, and he wrote books on all kinds of subjects. He didn't just write about war. He wrote a lot of different kinds of books, but he suffered from some mental health issues, which I'm going to guess where the war itself contributed to some issues in what they were described at the time as nervousness that forced him to move back to Alabama, which is where he was from. And he lived in Alabama until his death, and he published, I think, one more book after he moved back to Alabama. But March himself was a Marine, as I said, and he was a decorated Marine. He received the Croix de Guerre from the French government. I believe he received medals for bravery in combat from the United States government as well. As a member of the 5th Marine Regiment, he would have been part of the American 4th Brigade, which eventually became a part of the 2nd Division during World War I. But I don't know if you've heard this before, but most American soldiers who served in France during World War I saw very little combat. I think the average amount of time in combat that American soldiers served was less than, right around 2 weeks, maybe a little bit less. But if you were in the 5th or the 6th Marine Regiments, you were pretty much in combat from near the end of 1917 until war's end in 1918. And maybe that's why I'm partial to these books. So, books by those soldiers who served in that capacity, who are a long time in combat and experienced World War I, in a way different than soldiers and writers with less experience, makes these books, to me, particularly kind of important as kind of a testament to what American soldiers went through. Oftentimes in American history, we kind of discard World War I as an event that took place largely without the United States. And while that may be true, that doesn't mean that the war didn't have a profound effect on life in the United States, and certainly a profound effect on the men who went through it. So, as a member of the 5th Marine Regiment, William March, his last name was actually Campbell, William March is his pen name, but as a member of the 5th Marine, William March would have seen combat at Below Wood. He would have been involved in the fighting at St. Mihiel, and he would have been involved in fighting at Mont Blanc. Some of the first combat experiences for American soldiers, and some of the most costly combat experiences for American soldiers. He would have been a part of that. He would have served for a while in the capacity of really just plugging the line and serving under, as the 5th and 6th Marine regiments were folded in the 4th Brigade, serving under French commanders for a brief period of time. He would have been in the trenches around Verdun, and he would have been in the area around Chateau Thierry, trying to prevent the German advance from reaching Paris. So, there's no doubt that March saw a lot of combat, and therefore it shouldn't surprise us that his first book is about that experience, and it is all about the experience of the average soldier. I really think this is a great book. I think it's an underappreciated, in some ways, an American classic. I don't know that literary-wise it ranks up there with some of the more famous books, but it is a unique book, and it is a raw and realistic look at war and Americans at war. And essentially, so one of the things that makes Company K really unique, and one of the things I think makes it a great book, and I'm not sure you'll be able to see it on the camera, but rather than being a book told from or the story of the war told from one perspective, each chapter is actually relates events from World War I in which the Marines participated from the different point of view of a different soldier. And I don't think there are any chapters that are repeated. And so you can actually just trace, you can see how many chapters there are. Most of them are short, like a page and a half, maybe 2 pages long. You can trace the progress of the 5th Marines from, on the boat, worried about German submarines, to, near the end of the war, and all the experiences they had from the point of view of lots of different soldiers. And I think part of the greatness of the book is March's ability to, create different voices and different perspectives and different personas for lots of different people, and have them describe the war from different perspectives, from the perspectives of gung-ho privates to, wizened, experienced sergeants, to inexperienced lieutenants who get their men killed by making bad decisions while trying to, prove that they're the ones in charge. The novel itself grew out of a story, I think a short story, it grew out of one short story that March published before, in which he told the story of American soldiers being ordered to kill German prisoners. And that story he told, I think, from the perspective of 9 different soldiers, told that story and their reactions to it. And I think the idea then for the book grew from that. But I really think there are some elements of almost genius in this, and it accomplishes its goal of really, I think, putting you right there in the minds of the American soldiers fighting during World War I, and the struggles they faced and the hardships of that war, and the reality of bad food and terrible places to sleep and incompetent officers and unhappy non-coms and missions to them that seemed ridiculous and periods of rest that seemed too short. So along with one other book, and that'll be probably the last book I talk about in this series about American World War I fiction, I would highly recommend Company K. I'm not sure there's been a reissue of the book lately, and I'm not sure. I think there wasn't actually a reissue of the book not too long ago, so it might not be impossible to find. But if you're a fan of war fiction, for lack of a better term, I really think this is a classic of the genre, and one of the 2 most important American novels about World War I written in the years after World War I by combat veterans. Anyway, I hope if you get a chance you check out, and that's the kind of book you're interested in, I hope you get a chance you check out William March's Company K, because I really think that it is a very good book, and in lots of ways an almost lost and underappreciated classic. Anyway, let me know if you've read Company K, if you've read any other American World War I fiction or other World War I fiction, and let me know what you think about the video, and thank you for watching.